Well, the two largest goals that we had when we launched the DevOps program were reducing the time to market. And time to market is not always the best for a utilities company because we're not racing necessarily, but just reduce the time of code development to deployment to production. We have a lot of our main applications that we do releases quarterly. So if you look at our end users, they're only getting new features maybe 4 times a year. So it was definitely a large initiative to figure out how do we put more features or fixes into production environments more frequent than quarterly. And this also paired with, there was an agile initiative that went along with DevOps. So we were focusing on the way the company works. How do we just more rapidly get changes? How do we break them down into smaller chunks so that we can get them out faster, and that there's less likelihood of it being an event when we do a deployment. When you do deployments infrequently, they become so large that the risk of those goes way up. So that was the first thing. The second one was really figuring out how to reduce manual effort. Pretty much everything that we did through our SDLC was manual. Code builds, code deploys, testing, you name it, everything was a manual process. There's just so much effort spent doing that. And it's part of the reason we could only release that frequently. But the second, you allow for a lot of human error in that process, and it takes a lot of people and a lot of time to do anything. So the cost perspective on this was, how can we become more efficient by completely automating the task, especially the repetitive tasks, the things that you do. Like I said, code builds, deployments, those are things you're doing multiple times a day on a project. So how do we automate those so that we can reduce the chances of someone making a human error and bring the cost down? Once we got into the program, we sort of added a third one as we partnered with our cyber group around adding secure coding practices to the tool chain. Like I said, this wasn't an initial focus when we kicked off the program, but it became pretty obvious, if you looked at patterns and what was going on kind of globally there, that, part of the overall, one of the core tenets of a DevOps project or program in general is to shift left. We want to be able to find, bugs a little earlier in the process. So that needed to include security. We needed to make sure that the teams, as we're deploying more rapidly, they're thinking about and identifying security issues earlier in the process.